The following presentation is intended for supervisors or direct managers of employees using Reactec safe distance technology to help you understand how to use the technology and the information it supplies. Safe distance as a technology includes a wrist-worn device to allow personal alerts to employees. These alerts will be a vibration, a buzzing noise, also information displayed on the screen. The detection between two devices being in close proximity is achieved with Bluetooth technology. Within the system, it is possible to configure the settings to suit your working environment, and more will be given on that information. The system includes an automatic collection of all the data to be presented in a GDPR-compliant database, which is hosted. The data, which can also be used for contact tracing, is, as has been said, in full compliance with GDPR. It is also possible with the system to extend your deployment to include a device which will allow live data to be reported within a working day. As a system, it includes three elements, two of which are essential. A product which we define, which we have named the hardware, is the wrist-worn device which gives the personal alerts to the workers. The hosted data management, we have branded analytics. And then the third element, the device which allows you to collect data in real time, is a device called Razor. In a simple deployment, the Razor is not essential. The Razor is something that you add to your deployment in order to get data within the working day. So the key principles of the safe distance, first of all, in terms of detection. So the wearable device hardware that is worn by individual workers will alert the workers when they come too close to a colleague. It will emit a buzz, it will vibrate, and it will display on the screen the message "too near." Now, there will be some variation in the actual physical distance between individuals when this alert is received. And this is down to how well the radio signals between the two devices are aligned. Employees should regard the alert as a reminder and not necessarily as a notification of poor behaviour in itself, because it is the reaction to the alert which is most important. So if an individual receives an alert and they check their surrounding environment and they can see that they are too close to a colleague, then they should move away. And in moving away, the alert will cease. Since the device is a wrist-worn device, this can help the detection diameter of the product, because radio signals can be blocked by the body, and therefore something worn on the torso may well not be able to detect behind the person, whereas a device that's on the wrist gives a wider arc of detection. As stated previously, safe distance includes a number of configurable settings, all of which are listed here. The contact start period refers to the period of time over which contact between the two devices needs to be sustained in order for the detection to be counted as a continual detection. As mentioned before, if you have very good alignment between two devices, then you may be alerted to detection being established at a distance greater than 2 meters, especially in enclosed environments. Extending the contact start period is one of the ways of minimizing these potentially false positives. Because what is required with the contact start period is that the detection between the two devices is sustained for that length of time. And good alignment with just the normal movement of hands is not possible to achieve for extended periods of time unless the alignment is achieved with people who are very still. So extending the contact start period from the default of 5 seconds, say up to 15 seconds or beyond, will very much reduce the contacts which are considered false positives, i.e. contacts that happen between people who are greater than, say, 2 meters apart, which in any event is likely to be infrequent and very short in duration, again because of this nature of the contact having to be sustained for the period of time. The sensitivity available from hardware, there are 3 settings which are referred to as low, standard and high. The standard setting should mean that in open environments, typically individuals will be about 2 meters apart when detection causes an alert. With low setting in an open environment, this distance is more likely to be about 1 meters. If you choose the high setting, then it will force workers to keep further apart before causing an alert. The alert types may be chosen between vibrate and buzz, vibrate only, or none. Contact duration is a means by which you can essentially determine the behaviour in terms of proximity to be of a greater or lesser importance. So short duration is colour-coded as green, and most employers will look for this to be around 1 minute or perhaps 30 seconds. Amber is a duration which is between the short and sustained. Red is a sustained duration, and most employers are choosing this to be 15 minutes, but others might choose it to be 10 or say 5 minutes. In order to be compliant with GDPR, Reactec believe that it's a requirement to delete the data that's collected for safe distance or social distancing purposes. And that's because of the need for social distancing, or for personal data rather, to only be retained for a period that it serves its purpose. So Reactec allow you to delete the data in 2 ways. First of all, the granular contact tracing data, which gives information on every interaction between 2 individuals. That can be deleted after a period of, say, 2 weeks or 6 weeks, depending on your belief in how long you would need that data for contact tracing purposes. The aggregated proximity data, which collects for any one individual the total time that they have been in contact with others and their average contact time per day, which doesn't hold the information on who that contact was with. That aggregated proximity data can be deleted after a much longer period, as you may find that useful in managing the social distancing behaviour of your employees. And as a final point on this topic, the settings which are marked with an asterisk on this page, so the contact start period, the sensitivity and the alert type, these can be configured at an individual docking station level, allowing you to manage perhaps different working environments. So moving on to the records that are actually created within the hardware Respond device. So essentially a proximity record is kept for each detection when any 2 individuals are at an unsafe distance, and each record is classified as being short, moderate or sustained. A record ends when a person moves material away from another person. And for each detection of an unsafe distance, a record is kept of the owner of the nearby hardware. And if that hardware happens to be from another company, there will still be a record, but it will be in fairly anonymous information, but it will allow you to speak to the other company and advise them of any contact tracing between their employees. as well as the record of who the proximity detection was with. It has the amount of time that detection took place for, and creates a date and time stamp of when the unsafe distance was detected. The records which are retained, which are collected by the hardware, are transmitted to the hosted Reactec analytics via a docking station. So whenever the hardware is docked on a docking station, all data records are immediately transmitted to the Reactec analytics, where if you logged on, you would be able to see the information. Alternatively, at 3 AM each day, all such data are aggregated together to allow an email to be sent to advise you of moderate and sustained proximities. Moderate proximities are considered alerts, sustained proximities are considered alarms. Two particular functionalities that are fairly unique to the Reactec Safe Distance system that you may find useful. The first one is cohorts. A cohort facility allows the identification of small groups of people who are allowed to work together, and therefore when they are working together and in close proximity, they do not receive any alert notifications. The data of their being in close proximity is, however, still recorded, but it's reported as cohort time as opposed to it being close proximity. When people within a cohort come within close proximity either of another cohort or other individuals, it will act as normal in terms of alerting them to the proximity of those other individuals. The second functionality is something that we consider, that we have termed safe zones. It's quite a different approach because basically within safe zones, we are actually switching off detection. So you would use a safe zone to indicate an area which is safe in that someone is basically protected by a physical barrier, and that physical barrier would prevent any transmission of germs. But that physical barrier may allow transmission of radio signals, and therefore it would allow false detections to be detected. So safe zones allow you to switch off detection of proximity in safe zones. An operator logs themselves as being within a safe zone by tagging onto an RFID tag. And this involves pressing a button on the hardware unit and presenting it to a little RFID tag, which is a label which would be within the physical area. And the tag is programmed with information to identify where it is, and also with a timeout piece of information to allow it to automatically switch back on detection should someone forget to switch back on detection. To switch back on detection, you simply tag onto an the RFID tag for a second time. The Reactec also allow the safe zones to be identified as two different types. One is called enclosed and the other is called an open safe zone. You would choose an enclosed safe zone where you know the protected employee cannot be approached unsafely. And we specifically thought of this application in situations, for instance, where you have a two-person vehicle and they're separated by a plastic screen. We were looking for the driver of the vehicle to not have to perform the tagging operation so that they're not distracted. So by using an enclosed safe zone on the passenger side, when a passenger is tagged onto that safe zone, the driver beside them does not need to tag, but would not be detected by the passenger because they are considered to be within an enclosed safe zone that cannot be approached. An open safe zone is where someone can be approached in an unsafe manner. So you may consider employees who are working on a manufacturing line, for instance, and they have side separations. So between their colleagues on either side who might be within an unsafe distance but protected by a physical barrier, you do not want those proximities to be detected. However, someone may be able to approach from behind, in which case you would consider that an open safe zone, so that if an employee did approach from behind who was not tagged into a safe zone, then their approach would be detected. So moving on to the analytics side of the system, first of all, as mentioned earlier, there is a daily alert email. You choose which employees receive these emails, potentially the supervisors of specific individuals, and the content of this email will basically notify them within the last working day if there have been instances of either moderate or sustained proximity detections. If neither of these happen, then the email will not be received. Moving on to looking at the analytics in terms of its reports, all of the reports that exist within the Reactec analytics can be viewed by logging into the system under your login credentials, or they can be set up to be automatically sent on a regular basis using the button Email PDF. So if you follow that black button, you will then be able to receive the reports that you think are of particular use to you and send them to you on a regular basis. So the first report that we're showing here is a summary report from the system. It defaults to 7 days, but the number of days that you review this report over can be extended to suit your needs. Looking at it in terms of any particular period, in this instance 7 days, the first graph on the left-hand side shows the total amount of contact instances or events in terms of whether a short, moderate and sustained, and compares the current period with the previous period of the same length of time. The graph on the right is a weekly report over all time, which shows the total amount of contact time for your organisation with a trend line as to whether that's increasing or reducing. And below this is a league table, if you would like, for your different data groups, where it shows the number of days that you have been monitoring social distancing, and again summarises the number of short, moderate and sustained events and the average contact time per employee. The next report that we're showing here is what we've called the workforce contact report. This report lists by all individuals, again, how many days that they have used the equipment, the total contact time and the average per day. And then it counts of these events, how many were short, moderate or sustained. And then it shows if there was any time where the individual was involved in a cohort and the last seen from that individual. When you click the blue button for any particular individual, then you would receive the contact tracing detail, which then shows for any particular individual which other individuals have they been in contact, and the detail of date and time of day and for how long. The contact tracing information of the previous report can be looked at in a more summarised version. So again, working from the workforce contact report, which you see under the social distancing drop-down menu, then for any one individual in that report, you can click on by day, which will give you a day analysis, what times of the day is the contact happening, or by contact, and there it will summarise for each individual how much time in any particular day have they spent with different individuals. Moving on to those that have chosen to expand their deployment by adding the device, which we call Razor, to their deployment. Razor is essentially a communication hub. As a communication hub, it can be deployed by allocating it to an individual, or it can be deployed at a fixed location on a wall. In both applications, what the Razor is able to do is, within a distance of about 40 meters, is pick up all the data that's available from any have-wear devices within that 40-metre range. It gathers that data and then sends it to the Reactec analytics. What the Razor also does is, if it is deployed with an individual, it will give them proximity information when they become within an unsafe distance, such as less than 2 metres of a have-wear user. And the Razor also has added functionality in that it can tell you the location of the device when it collects the data. So basically, the Razor proximity information is essentially the same as the have-wear information, but with the addition of GPS location information. And that location information is basically when the Razor detected proximity or when the Razor received information from the have-wear. The proximity information, as with have-wear, is considered either an alert, in which case it's a moderate proximity, or an alarm, in which case it's a sustained proximity. And the Razor will transmit the information of alerts during its default scheduled communications, which is every 15 minutes, or it will transmit alarms immediately. The proximity information, which is considered an alert, will result in an email notification going out to the people who have been set up to be supervisors of the individuals that cause the alerts. Or if it's considered to be an alarm, then it will result in both an email and a text message notification. The way in which the live data can be seen is one of two ways. So on the analytics dashboard, there is a live dashboard, and this is where you can see all of the other information which is possible within the Reactec ecosystem. So that might be hand-arm vibration monitoring, that might be noise, it could be alarms and alerts from lone worker activity, but it will also be those from social distancing, and it will show you active operators who have basically moderate or sustained detection information. There is also a live contact tracing report, which gives you again the granular detail of the people that have both moderate and sustained contact information, when and who those contacts were with. With the Razor device and the alert and alarm management system, you have the opportunity to, from a remote location, basically interact with the causes of these alert and alarm information. So from the drop-down box of notifications, there are operator alarms and operator alerts. For each, you will have details of the location of where it was received from, and then you have the ability with an action button to go in and interact with that and perhaps add commentary, close off the alert or the alarm, or perhaps even marked as false. So you have all of the functionality that you need to interact with the automatic alerts and alarm functions. So just to close this presentation and just give you a very brief overview of how the kit is actually used. There is a small YouTube video that's available to take you through these steps. Basically, you sign out a have-wear device using an operator ID card. It can be signed out from a docking station. There are 15-bay and 4-bay docking stations. And there's also a dual charger where you can have some have-wear devices and the 4-bay device. Once you have signed out using your ID card, and there are individual posters to tell you exactly how to do that for the specific devices, you collect the have-wear device and then you insert it within what we call the wrist strap and holder, so such that the have-wear is then mounted on the wrist of the user. Similarly, a Razor is assigned to individual using an RFID card, again the details of which is shown in a user poster. The Razor device, if you're using it as an individual, there's a specific user manual which will take you through all the screens of the device. And Razor will also help with lone worker type applications if that is something that is required. Finally, at the end of the working day, the hardware is returned. It can be returned to any docking station. It doesn't have to be the docking station or dual charger that it was released from. And it certainly doesn't have to be returned to any particular bay on the docking station. It's simply returned to an open bay. And once it's returned, that's what results in the automatic transfer of data to the online analytics, where you can log in to view reports, or again, set up the reports to be sent to you on an automatic basis at a cadence that suits your management. So that concludes this presentation. For any further information, you can see more on the Reactec website. Thank you.